We have come to send a simple message to Washington, D.C. It's very simple. We want them to hear this. Let our people work. That's what we want them to hear in Washington, D.C. I've spent every day of this oil spill along the coast helping to fight back this oil. Let me tell you this. I tell the entire country we will win this war. We're in the middle of a war to defend our way of life. We will win this war. The people of Louisiana have overcome Katrina, Rita, Gustav, Ike. We'll overcome this oil spill. We shouldn't have to fight our own federal government, just as we're responding to one disaster. Just as we're responding to one disaster, now we're going to fight a second disaster caused by Washington, D.C. Now let's remember what happened. Let's remember what happened. When they declared this moratorium, the Washington, D.C., the Secretary, the Department of Interior, they picked their own experts. We didn't pick the experts. The oil industry didn't pick the experts. They picked their own experts. Those experts said they didn't recommend a 6-month moratorium. Listen to what those experts said. Those experts said you can do drilling more safely. The fact the federal government can't do its job shouldn't cost thousands of Louisianians our jobs. What we're saying to Washington, D.C. is if you don't believe us, believe your own experts. You don't believe your own experts, 8 of those 15 experts, including those from the National Academy of Engineering, said the moratorium would actually make drilling less safe in the Gulf. They said there are steps you can take. There's not a man, woman, child here in this auditorium in the state of Louisiana that wants to see another drop of oil on our coast. We don't want to see another explosion. We don't want to see another tragedy. But we know there are steps that the federal government can do to make drilling more safe. We know the experts themselves said if you need additional equipment, put additional equipment. You need additional inspectors, put additional inspectors. If you need to inspect the well pressures, inspect the well pressures. But don't put our people out of work with what the judges called. Listen to what the judges called it. They said the moratorium was arbitrary and capricious. Arbitrary and capricious. We didn't just win once, we won twice in federal court. They went to an appellate court, we won again, they had a chance. Department of Interior, Washington, D.C. could have said, okay, we've lost not once, we've lost twice in federal court. Let's work with the state, let's work with local leaders to make sure drilling is done safely. Instead, they replaced one arbitrary and capricious one-size-fits-all moratorium. They doubled down. They gave us a second arbitrary and capricious one-size-fits-all moratorium that does nothing to make the Gulf safer. And here's what's so dangerous. The folks in Washington, they don't understand energy production. Here in Louisiana, we've been producing energy for the rest of the country for decades. Whether they know it or not, they need us to power their cars, their factories, and their homes. This moratorium does nothing to reduce our energy needs in this country. All this moratorium does is send more American dollars, more American jobs overseas, sometimes to countries that aren't even friendly to us. Somebody's got to explain to me. Somebody's got to explain to me how sending more dollars and more jobs overseas is good for America's economy, good for our security, good for the state of Louisiana, because I'm here to tell you it's not. This moratorium's bad for our security, bad for our economy. But they don't get it in Washington, D.C. The President of the United States came down here, met with us in person. This is what he told us. He said this to me. He said, Governor, if people lose their jobs because of the moratorium, they can file a BP claim. I said, Mr. President, with all due respect, what if BP doesn't pay? He said, don't worry, Governor, they can file an unemployment claim. I said, with all due respect, Mr. President, our people don't want a BP check or an unemployment check. We want to go back to work. This isn't about these multi-billion-dollar multinational companies. they'll make their money. They'll go to those other countries. This is about Louisiana families, Louisiana workers. They don't understand in Washington, D.C. They literally said to us, the administration said to us, the rigs will just come back. The rigs will just come back. Like you could turn off and on a switch. They don't understand the pain we felt in the 80s. They don't understand once these rigs go, they're gone for years. We know at least of 2 rigs going to Africa. We know other rigs are already in negotiations. These rigs cost $500,000 a day. They're not going to wait. And once they sign multi-year contracts, those jobs are gone for years. The estimates are in Louisiana alone, we'll lose 20,000 jobs. Across the Gulf Coast, tens of thousands of additional jobs. That's why today is so important. We need our voices to be heard. We need them to understand if they hear nothing else from today, they need to hear us say this: let us go back to work. We don't want a BP check. We don't want an unemployment check. We want to go back to work powering the American economy. I want to share with you some stories. So often what gets lost in this debate, this moratorium is not about me. It's not about multinational companies. It's about the people of Louisiana. I want to share with you some stories of some people that are being impacted by this moratorium today. This isn't about a study or a theory. These are about real lives, real jobs, people worried about how to pay their bills. Let me start with Lori Davis. Lori Davis is the owner of a company called RigChem. RigChem is a family-owned chemical manufacturing and distribution company. They've served the energy industry for 3 decades. They're a small business. Their deepwater drilling clients accounted for over 70% of their business. Through hard work, they're able to become a competitor. They finally thought they'd gotten security in their company. Then the moratorium hit. Lori says she's all about forgotten plans for expansion and remodeling. They can't even think about that anymore. She said her employees include her family members. She's scared. She doesn't know what tomorrow might bring. Initially, the company went through what they called hurricane mode, thinking they'd be able to bounce back quickly like they'd done before during storms. But soon they realized that was the wrong mentality. She said, I'm going to quote, when you know that you're going to have to face, you know what you're having to face, you can fight those battles. When you know what you're having to face, you can fight those battles. But now we're fighting the battle against the government, against people that are supposed to help and protect us in difficult times. She said they don't have any debt. They've never been dependent on anybody else to support themselves. But due to the moratorium and the company's uncertainty, she has had to go to the bank to establish a line of credit to hopefully ensure the future of her company. Lori says she will never forget the day she watched boatloads of equipment coming in from offshore recently after they had likely demobilized a rig. She said, and I quote, it's a helpless feeling watching all that come back in when you know there is nothing you have done to cause this, nothing you can do to change it, but keep talking about it and hope that people understand. Lori is here today. Lori, please stand up, and we're going to put her picture up. There she is. Give Lori a round of applause. Lori, the people of Louisiana are going to stand with you today. We understand. We understand this moratorium that a federal judge has called arbitrary and capricious is now not right. Lori's company is working to change its focus, creating more of an international business focus, but they're having to think about sending their employees overseas to keep their jobs. I want you to think about that. Small family-run businesses having to think about during a national recession sending jobs overseas because of this moratorium. We need to tell Washington, D.C., don't send our jobs overseas because of your moratorium. Keep these jobs in Louisiana, keep these jobs in the Gulf Coast.